Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. We have with us Derrick Day speaking about building a bigger competitive future. He's going to share his insights on how to enhance your brand and to take it from startup to success. My name is Robert Foster, and I'm the Director of Marketing for Northern Lights. And I'm honored to have Derrick join us today to share. And so, with that being said, Derrick, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Robert. Thanks, everybody. Buddy. It's great to be here. So essentially, yeah, today's talk is about building a bigger competitive future. And to really simplify things, if we make our customers feel like that guy, we know we're doing our job correctly. We've gotten there. But it can be really hard to make people feel that way. And so in today's talk, I want to just share a couple of tools and techniques that I use in the field as a brand consultant to help build these strong emotional connections. So just a quick snapshot on who I am. Derrick Daye. I've been in the space for over 25 years, working with brands in all stages of development and in many different business categories. And really excited about where this profession is going now, even in the face of AI, as I think that's going to enhance how we build those strong emotional connections. So, just a little bit about the Blake Project, which is a company I co-founded back in 2003. We're working around the globe for really working with brands and for a couple of different reasons. We're either helping them create an advantage, expand an advantage, or solve some complex marketing challenge that they have. Um, these are some of those clients, as I said, very diverse. Two I just want to point out here that I'm very proud of. The first on the left-hand side of your screen is the Statue of Liberty. The Blake Project was the only company that has ever done the brand strategy work for the Statue of Liberty. Very proud to be selected for that work. And then to the right, that's Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s daughter, Bernice King, helping her take on inequality and injustice. We've been working with her for a while now. But, the interesting thing about brands, you know, the business models may change, but the fundamentals of building a brand don't, because you're still trying to encode unique value in someone's mind, and that's until the human condition changes, that's the way it's always going to be. So, regardless of what kind of business you're in, certainly there's nuances, um, but the core concepts of building a brand remain the same. What I like to the way I like to see things right now is, usually we divide things up between B2C and B2B, but we've really moved into an age of B2P, which is business to people. And you've got to think about, building a brand in those terms. There's a person or there are people on the other end of your brand messaging. And those are the people we need to move. And to do that, we have to help them kind of cross this bridge to understanding. But I'll get into some of these details as we go forward in my talk here. What we've got ahead, we'll just take a quick look at what are brands. We'll explore building emotional connections, defining your brand essence, which is one of these core concepts we use as brand consultants. We'll also look at differentiating your brand, a few extra tools to get you thinking about building that bigger competitive future. And then, if you stick around, a note on dreaming and inspiring, which is really the charge for all brands. So let me get into this. What I've found over time working with brands and certainly talking to a lot of marketers is, um, you have to start with this understanding before you can embark on any brand strategy project. It is, what is a brand? And why is that? Because Unfortunately, in the marketing profession, we have over 10 accepted definitions, unlike medicine or law, where it's very clear what the definitions are. We keep, as marketers, kind of keep things fuzzy. Now, you've probably heard that a brand is a promise, and that is a widely accepted definition of a brand, and certainly one that I embrace. But my favorite one is this one at the bottom. A brand is a sum of all experiences a customer has with you. So that's the totality of everything about you coming together, from your brand identity to the experience the customer has. It all lends towards building this picture in someone's mind about you and the value you create. So when you think of it in those terms, it makes everything you do very important. No one piece is more important than the other. They're all equal and they're all coming together to create this very important image. And that image is so important, it actually translates into, I think right now we're looking at 68% of a company's intangible, the value of its intangible assets. So, that's your brand. That lives in your IP. It also lives in your brand. Brand is that important today. There are no more, there used to be a time when, and I would see this more in the B2B space, where there was an excuse that we're not a B2C brand, so we really don't have to pay attention to building brands, which is a huge mistake because brands, of course, are the human side of your business, and that's where that connective tissue takes place and grows. And if you ignore that, you're essentially really hurting yourself, and leaving a wide open pathway for a competitor to come and build their own brand and knock you to the side. So having said that, let me just kind of move along here. You really can't build any brands of significance without first understanding the context in which your customers or consumers, are living in, because your brand is going to be living in their lives. So what we know here, and this is just a snapshot over the last, I would say 10 to 15 years, is consumers are changing. And that makes it harder for us to build brands. But if we understand, what's happening and meet our customers where they are, we certainly have a better chance of building something meaningful for them. So we know there's a deep mistrust of institutions and big brands. That's been going on for some time. So, you have to consider each of these as you go out into the world here. There's a request for transparency and honesty. People want to know what's behind the curtain, and people want to know that, your brands are fun and playful, and they will fit into, they can fit into their lives. There's a desire now for brands to fix the world. That's actually a good thing for brands. It gives them a chance to be in a more powerful position and step into the role that institutions once played. Um, you know, Brands can be that mechanism that make the world a better place. A lot of brands are know that and are embracing it, and it's important for all of us for numerous reasons to have that embedded in our approach to building brands. There's also this deep sense of community and sharing. As we know, we can we can build and grow communities and create advocates that power our brands, and that goes for any brand. This is a really important aspect that should be considered as you're taking a brand out into the world or managing a brand. And the last point I just want to make here is just keeping in mind that consumers are really fickle. They're the most educated to ever shop the planet. It truly is a kind of a grass is greener situation. If they see something better, they're gone in a second. So you have to really focus on building something meaningful rather than transactional if you want to have any kind of build any kind of enduring profitable growth. And so takes me to this next point. And, in my talk, I'll touch on a little bit about building these emotional connections because they're just so important. And now we have brain science, which has proven that, we do have a pay button in the brain, and it essentially, it's linked to how we feel about things. So what we do as marketers, what we try to do here is if we take a step back and say, well, what are those characteristics that, make people like other people? And understand those characteristics and then try to transfer them to brands, maybe that will help us build that strong emotional connection. And indeed it will. So you have physicality, intellectuality. These strong characteristics are really the underpinnings of emotional connection. So think about how you can move these over to your brand. And also think about how 100% of your customer decisions are made based on emotion. And I think um, that this model here can be very helpful in building those strong emotional connections for your brand. See, over time, we found that it was these three components that could help a brand um, earn a leadership position. And the first is emotional advantage, how customers feel about you. You can figure that out through brand research, um, certainly, but you're trying to get into possession of the truth. What are they thinking about you, themselves, your competitors' brands? It's always good to start with the mind because that's really where you're trying to, you know, build that advantage. The next is a distinctive advantage, which how customers recognize you. And I know you'll see this is where brand identity comes in, and it can even be where experience happens, as well as the next as this next point here, the connective advantage, how customers engage with you. If you're able to succeed in building these three advantages, we've found that you have a leadership position. And again, it's all based on strong emotional connections. And I love this quote by Donald Kahn. Reason leads to conclusions, emotions lead to action. And, you know, for a brand, though, I want to be clear, um, it's not enough to be loved. Some action needs to take place. Someone needs to refer your brand to somebody else, refer someone to your brand, or there is some kind of transaction that has to take place. But know that that is not driven by reason. That is not driven by reason. It's not going to get you there using just facts and data. You're going to have this emotional connection to make things really happen. So with that, I just want to get into kind of the beginning of the first concept coming up of brand essence. But I want you to understand that people aren't buying products; they're buying meanings. And if you think of your brand as a container for meaning, what you're doing is pouring meaning into that container. And if you do it right, great brands represent an idea that supersedes the things that they actually make. And here's an older example, but a really valuable one with IBM. They used to make those computers on the left, but they were able to successfully move into other business categories like professional services. They were able to transcend their core business because they stood for something in the mind more than what they made, um, which is critical in the world where, we're in an age of disruption and change is all around us, and it's quite possible that your own business will have to do some dramatic shift to stay relevant. But if you have the right strategy in place, you have a much better chance of success. So let's look at another example, and Coca-Cola. What makes this really interesting is you see Coca-Cola sneakers here, which Coca-Cola is the number three shoe brand in Brazil, which would be hard to imagine if you didn't live in Brazil. But this is another example of being able to transcend and to take your brand into places that it wasn't initially intended to go. Um, and if you're a true value creator and you've thought it through, you can build these pathways to creating new value in other ways. So let's get into this concept of brand essence, which is this idea that captures the most important understanding that the brand wants to have for its consumers. And this is one of those core components of a brand positioning. And it's one that truly is the North Star when it comes to brand strategy. And so I'll take you through each component of it. First, brand essence is who you are versus what you are. It's that internal thing in your organization that keeps you on track and on brand. It's not what you make. It goes beyond that. It's the soul of the brand. It's not a slogan. It's not some external messaging that you give your customers. It's really about what is making your heart beat within the organization. It's simple and concise, easy for everyone in the organization to understand. And I'll have some examples here in a moment, which I think will bring the concept, will make it very clear. It's aspirationally attainable. That means once you're creating this brand essence, it has to be something within reach. It can't be something that it will take us 10 years to get to. It has to be something we can activate relatively soon. And then it's timeless and enduring. One of the things about brand essence here, it's not made to be differentiating. It's not like a brand promise, which we'll talk about coming up. It's something that you know, think of yourselves. Once you know, uh, beyond your teen years, you kind of became the person you'll be the rest of your life for the most part. So yeah, under that same example here, a brand essence will stay the same, whereas a brand promise may have to change over time as people need new things from you. And a brand essence is also extendable. It helps you get into other business categories. And so let me share here a little bit more on brand essence. As I mentioned, the heart and soul of a brand. It's stated in three words or less, adjective, adjective, noun format. It's constant across all product categories throughout the world. It's really for internal audiences as part of your strategy. It's not something that you very often ever see communicated outside of the organization. And as I mentioned, it does not have to be differentiated. So now let's take a look at some real world examples here. Here's Nike Authentic Athletic Performance. So this is what they chose as part of their strategy within their organization. And essentially, whether it's a new celebrity endorsement, whether it's a new fabric, a new shoe design, um, if it doesn't align with authentic athletic performance, they don't do it. It's very simple as that. Everybody in the organization knows this brand essence. They use it as a lens to make decisions through. So it's very clear to everybody. All decisions will be filtered through this. Let's take a look at another example. Uber movement ignites opportunity. Another thing about a brand essence is that it needs to make sense for the people that work there. Now, this may not be intuitive to you or me, why they chose this, or maybe it will be. But you know, Uber has, adopted something that is working for them internally and helps them stay on brand. Here's Disney Parks, fun family entertainment. So you should be able to, easily draw a line from the brand essence to the brand and the experience that's created there. So employees at, Disney parks, they can see right away when if fun family entertainment is not, being achieved. If other employees are getting off brand or there's something going on at the park that doesn't support this, um, a red light goes off for all employees, and they rush to correct it. And that's when a brand essence is really working. Everybody has adopted it. It's part of their tool belt. Now, let me give you another example here of a well-known brand, Starbucks, rewarding everyday moments. So, Starbucks, interestingly, gives us an example of what to do and what not to do. Um, and I'll just take it with the what not to do. So a little bit of time travel here and going back probably 15 years now when Howard Schultz was the CEO and he had stepped down and the CFO took over and pretty much went against everything that rewards everyday moments, increased the price, uh, removed soft seating with the idea that more people will get in and out, more coffee will be sold, um, changed the two-ply toilet paper to one-ply, and by doing that, they could save $400,000 a year in those costs, and essentially went against everything that made Starbucks great. As a result, 300 stores had to close. Howard Schultz had to come back, figure things out, and right the ship. Um, you know, Once something is in place like this, and it is creating this dream for, in this case, coffee drinkers that wanted this, third place to recharge. Don't wake people up from their dream. The idea here would be to, well, how can we build on this? How can we reward everyday moments in greater ways and in perhaps even new ways, but not going against the thing that built you? And of course, Starbucks is, back trying to recapture its magic again. But they always offer us a good example of building strong emotional connections when we look back to their early days. What is your brand essence? You could take a moment and just jot it down, adjective, adjective, noun format. It's usually quicker to start with the noun and, think it through for your own brand. What would we do here if we were just thinking about Albert Einstein? Would we use um, we could probably, use scientist as perhaps the noun. Uh, um, Maybe we'd throw in a genius for an adjective, and I'm sure you could fill in the other blank. But it's it seems like a very trivial exercise, but it's not, because this truly is the North Star of your brand. And it's critical to not just brand strategy, but business strategy. And when I work with startups, I oftentimes work with startups that didn't do this work in the beginning. They waited 2 or 3 years and things weren't happening in the market for them. And then they came back to do this. Um, and we talk about how, you know, if we had done this in the embryonic stages of your idea, we would have, really had that North Star. Now, some consultants call this a brand mantra. There's Some even use brand DNA. It it gets fuzzy, as I mentioned in the beginning of the talk. But a lot of people use brand essence as the concept, but it is a critical pillar in building brand strategy, um, which takes me to this next point, which I love this quote by the Persian philosopher Rumi. What you seek is seeking you. And the thing about that is, in a marketing context, is, we've got to put a stake in the ground. We've got to say that we're this, so the universe can say, "Hey, wow, those are my people," and they can find us. But if you don't do that, you're just asking people to do a lot of guessing, and they typically guess, or they could guess your competitor. So it's really important to do these fundamental exercises to think through your own value in the world. And that gets us to this one big problem that all brands face, and that's overcoming over communication. You're either a noise or a signal. There's nothing in between. So what you really want to do is focus on creating this very powerful signal that people clearly, help people see clearly what you're all about. And this is a little bit of a cautionary tale here, but when you don't do it, bad things happen. When brands go undefined, the brand gets defined for you by customers. You never want to make your customers fill in blanks or guess what you're all about. Um, they may not get it the way you had hoped they would. Um, Same with employees. They'll have no North Star. They'll be figuring it all out themselves too. What's this brand all about? They have no real direction on how they're competing every day, and they'll have no focus. But things get worse when you don't define your brand. Competitors can step in and um, they can help people understand that you're really about this and not the thing that you think you're really about. And then the worst thing happens of all is, once someone has locked in something in their mind about you, um, minds hate to change. And in the worst cases, you just have to change your brand. And usually that's because negative associations have attached to it and there's no turning back. But do the work. Do the work. Now, what I've seen I've worked with over 250 brands in all stages of development, and I say I have, but I also with my partners as well. Um, and what I've found in more established organizations is change is harder, and sometimes it's very unpopular. And I think Peter Drucker, the father of modern business management, says it best here. If you want something new, you have to stop doing something old. So, part of brand strategy is also understanding what that old is, and what is time to retire. What part of the strategy or what part of the business is time to push away and make room for that new thing that's going to keep your brand relevant. But differentiation also requires discipline and sacrifice. As a matter of fact, the art of branding is sacrifice. It's saying no more than yes. It's saying, hey, we're doing this, we're not doing this, and staying very disciplined in those decisions, which requires relentless focus and relentless consistency. And relentless consistency is also really key in building trust. And I want to make a point here about the times that we're living in where uncertainty is a daily part of our lives. Um, and the thing about Uncertainty is, trust is the antidote for uncertainty. And in a commercial context, trust comes through in your brand. So now is the best time to be working on your brand if you haven't already started on it, or even maybe you have, but you're finding that your brand is not has not built the trust or is not building the trust that it once did. You see, brands, they're living things. It's not a pond, it's a river. And you have to really evolve to stay relevant today. And think of no as your friend. And that's going to keep you on brand and really change to the strategy, which I think in a lot of ways is a good thing. So I did want to touch on this model here of brand positioning, and I know that some of the people listening to this talk are marketers, and this won't be new to them. But really, as a refresher, what you're looking for is owning this unique point in someone's mind, or this, you're putting your unique value in one point in someone's mind. And that's what we call the sweet spot. It's very important to your consumer. Your organization's very good at it, and competitors are not addressing it, or it would be very hard for them to do so. That's what you're looking for. That's the sweet spot that you're looking for in brand positioning and brand differentiation is a core part of that. And that leads me to this brand promise, which is a core part of your positioning. So brand promise, it's exactly what you're promising to the consumer, but it has some hurdles to jump for it to have any value at all. It needs to be compelling, believable. People need to really understand it. It does have to be differentiating, and it should be a promise that helps build that strong emotional connection. And I'm kind of moving along here because I want to kind of keep a good pace here, but I have a couple more concepts that I want to share today on building competitive advantage. And just like anything else, if you fail to plan, you're planning to fail, as the adage goes. So you need to have a plan, and that goes for your brands as well. Um, One thing I like to point out in this talk is there are lots of reasons why brands fail. I've zeroed in on 10. Um, it could be no competitive point of difference. It could be some kind of consumer backlash. But the biggest reason they fail is they don't have a process in place that provides the right information at the right time to make critical decisions. So they don't have that lens. They haven't done the brand strategy work. So they're going into making critical decisions unarmed, um, in a sense. And that's where they find out just how unprepared they are. So when we think about, all the brands we know today, most of them are very sophisticated. They've thought it through, which is great. But the most successful ones are the ones that are always thinking it through. As a matter of fact, in brand strategy work, it's you know not uncommon that you'd be paying a close attention, using brand tracker studies to understand how consumers are thinking and adjusting the strategy as you go forward. Remember, it's a river, not a pond. But be ready. I mean, right now, in this age of disruption and this wave of uncertainty, those brands who haven't thought this through, I am telling you, they are feeling the pain. So I hope they're in some kind of search for help. Marketing can't fix everything, but it certainly is good to have a thinking partner. So let me get into this next concept, which every hero needs a villain. Another way to look at this is, every brand needs an enemy. And essentially, here, what we're looking at is, what would these superhero heroes be to us if there were no villains? They probably would just have kind of useless powers, right? Or we really couldn't see them stand up against anything. And it's so important to have a villain in the story so people can see that you're different than whatever that villain is. And in doing so, it helps them make choices. And that's one of the things strong brands do is they help people make choices. So I'm going to take you to this one client that we worked with, Bluegrass Cellular, in the state of Kentucky. They were really masters at offering cell service that Verizon, AT&T, Sprint, they just were not effective in these rural areas in Kentucky. And in working with them on their strategy, we decided that together, we decided that they were about connection. They were creating these valuable connections for their customers like nobody else. So then we looked at, well, what's on the other side of that? What would be the villain? And it's isolation. And so, understanding that, Bluegrass went out and they did campaigns on the sides of barns. They were visible at country stores and country fairs. And they reminded their prospective customers and customers that they were the brand that could, eliminate this pain from the equation. They could slay this dragon, and that they were about connection and not about isolation. And that's so powerful to have that enemy in place because, obviously that enemy it's not your competitor. It's what competes or conflicts with your brand's purpose. But the customer knows that, wow, if you're the brand that eliminates that for me, you have me for life. Okay, so you've really got to understand what your brand stands for and what it stands against. Let me use one more example here. Um, so, Patagonia here, it's always really important to pick an enemy that really matters, something big. If it's just some small pain point, yeah, it would be nice if it went away. But if it was a big pain point for your business, standing in the way of what your customers really wanted, then you'd really be the hero. So you notice, Superman doesn't go out and, do the small things. He's doing the big things. And that's what you have to do in making sure you pick a villain that it takes big things to take. You're taking on big things. So I'm not trying to politicize this talk, uh, but in the first Trump term, we saw Donald Trump take on national parks. He cut their budgets. And if you know much about the Patagonia brand, you know that they stand for protecting the planet. So this was a rallying cry for Patagonia. And this was a very big opportunity for Patagonia because now they had a global villain in Donald Trump's policies in his first term that they could take on. And how they did that is, if I recall correctly, part of Trump's policies is they got a $10 million tax break. They took that $10 million and they applied it to help save the planet. And they did other things to take on his policies in his first term. But understand here that, when your brand stands for something, there probably is an enemy that is standing in the way of your customer. And that's what you want to take on. And this is you know, can really help elevate your cause when you take on something that's big. So a couple more thoughts here as we get into wrapping things up. Five things to build a bigger competitive future. As I mentioned earlier, be in possession of the truth. Know know your customers better than anybody else, you know. Um, back to Patagonia, one of the things that makes them strong is the makers of the stuff are also the users of the stuff. So they really share the values of their customers and they understand that through customer research. Know what you stand for and stand against. We touched on that. Establish your emotional advantage. Also, make sure your story is as powerful as your offering. Story is really where that connective tissue happens. And let's not forget that, story was the first technology for humans. It predates fire. So story is part of us, and we need to make sure that we tell all of our brand stories. And we can connect with many audiences in many different ways. And also another point I want to make is build your brand from the inside out. And what I mean by that is, this usually comes through in brand culture work, which my firm also does. But we're past the days of marketing just being this external thing. It really starts on the inside because if we're making promises to consumers, well, employees better know what that promise is and how to deliver on that promise. And so, building the brand from the inside out is critical. And that brings me here to just leave you on this really fine point. There's a couple things as a marketer, and I just want to say that we're all marketers now, and marketing is too important to be left just to the marketers. Um, and in that sense, also just a reminder that we are all competitors here. Our job is to compete. And the best competitors, they help their customers dream and inspire. What I love about marketing is it creates the future. It's not about accounting, which is about the past. It's about the future, and it's helping people see that their lives are going to be better with our brand in it. And we're helping them, see that, hey, if they go that way with us, we can help them get to that better life. And that's all about dreaming and inspiring. Unfortunately, you're going to run into uh, leadership teams that they don't know how to dream and inspire on their own in their own lives. So it creates this weakness in their own organizations. Um, and that's too bad. They think the world moves by numbers, but it's words. It's words that move people, and actions. Everything now is, we've kind of moved past the say you're going to do things to the see you're going to do things. People want to see the action, happen for them. So I'm just encouraging you to step back and think about how you can, reinforce the dream you've created through your brand, or create a new dream that people can believe in to help you build that bigger competitive future. And then I just also want to just put this here on where you have, you can see how you can reach me on LinkedIn, or reach out to my company, um, through this contact information. But it definitely was a pleasure sharing this with you, and I hope to hear from you. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Derrick, for your insights in building a competitive brand. I know at Northern Lights, who hosted this webinar, we've already started, excuse me, implementing some of these changes in the way that we speak, in our elevator speeches, excuse me, and how we go forward with our brand. With that being said, this has been sponsored by Northern Lights. Northern Lights is a custom application, custom mobile app development company that is parented by Taylor Corporation, a $2.5 billion digital and print media company. It is our pleasure to host Derrick. during this webinar, and I know that we will be seeing you again in the future for a follow-up to this initial session. And again, as always, this will be hosted on our LinkedIn page and on our website. And stay tuned for upcoming other webinars that we'll have in the future. Thank you. Thank you, Derrick.
Thank you.